Hello everyone, my name is Benjamin, and today I'm going to be talking about hard truths preppers seem to not understand. So, for this video, I'm basically going over three main things: ammo, animals, and medicine, or rather, production and procurement of medicine, being these things. Number one being ammo. Yeah. Unless you have an ungodly amount of ammo, I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds, you're probably not going to have enough ammo, or you're going to have too much ammo and you can't use it all. And why is that a con or a bad thing? Well, here's the thing. In order to be able to maintain yourself and be able to do what you need to, either if you roam around the country or planet, or if you're in one single spot, you're going to need to use the ammo for self-defense, hunting, and practice. Because unless you have an ungodly amount, you're probably not going to be able to fulfill those requirements. There's also things, and you might be a crack shot, it's not an if, but a when you have a miss. Sooner or later, you're going to have yourself lined up on some, and for some reason you miss it. Whether you pull the gun, the round is bad, or the deer moved away or something, you're going to miss. Unless you have the amount of ammo to practice, to get what you need and do what you need, you're not going to do well. Also, in storage, unless you're able to keep a stable climate storage condition in the apocalypse or whatnot. This is directed towards the doomsday preppers, those kind of people. And for that, unless you have it in a stable area that has its own climate and whatnot, whether by electrical device or by natural means, you're probably not going to be able to have enough, or you're probably going to have too much and it's going to corrode or go bad on you before you can even use it, which is a huge problem. Also, you might think of reloading. Well, here's the thing. Most modern firearms require not smokeless gunpowder, nitrocellulose, or something of that nature, one of the many offshoots. And that is extremely hard to find or make. If you try to make it yourself, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and you go, kaboom. You also have to think about the primers, the priming compound, how you make them, recycling, reuse them, which could be a bad thing. You could try to use gunpowder in it, but there's been many videos that show that gunpowder for a rifle powder, is not usable for most modern rifles, being that it's too large of a grain and it doesn't provide enough pressure. As well, if you try to use a very, very fine powder for your rifle, there is a high chance of blowing it up or destroying something or causing a gas leak of some kind or a rupture, which is a very bad idea. And also, you have to take into account of cleaning your weapons, and that could be just as a hassle. And some people who like to collect more guns than there are people in their town, they have the worst of it, because they may have all these nice toys and all this ammo, but are you truly going to use all those guns? Are you truly going to use all that ammo in the doomsday scenario? Probably not. You might, in reality, you might just be using one or two guns in a shithead defense scenario, which is probably either going to be a rifle or a shotgun and a pistol. One of those three, or two of those three, which is a huge thing to think of. Now, some long-action blowback shotguns can use black powder, but they're not really reliable, which is a huge deal if you're in the apocalypse or societal collapse, whatever that may be. And then there comes gunpowder storage, and that's pretty hard to store. You could, and some people might be asking, hey, if you can't make nitrocellulose, then how can you make gunpowder? Well, even if you don't have sulfur, you substitute it with some sort of glucose. Substitute like sugar, crystallized maple syrup, or honey that's really ground down into a fine powder. Add into the charcoal and potassium nitrate mixture, and you can produce your own potassium nitrate via pissing in a barrel filled of a bunch of rotten vegetables or plant matter, whatever you use. And with that, it would be probably better to have some sort of black powder rifle. Now, there are several reproductions and antiques you can buy that focus on the same thing, whether it be catlock, flintlock, or self-contained cartridges, whether it be paper or a brass cartridge. You can still use those and possibly reuse them. It all depends. There's also the sorry, my ears are clogged. Same thing in my nose. There are several things you can do to do substitute or get something that will use for you. And some people might think, but then I can't get an accurate shot, or when I can't use it to defend myself. Well, it depends. I mean, you could get double barrel black powder shotguns and they can work pretty fine, or you can use some sort of old percussion revolver or a flintlock rifle that has a breech. There are several ones that do that you can get quick and accurate shots with. It just depends on what you get. Now comes to my second point, animals. Yes, that is the most opinionated thing I've seen so far. You would think weapons would be the most opinionated thing and get the most people pissed off. Not really. I've noticed this with a lot of preppers I've talked to, is that they seem to believe that in the case of the apocalypse or societal collapse, whichever one they may be, whichever one that might be, maybe, they think the only things that's going to be a problem are the bear, deer, wolves, and what's native to our country here in the United States or wherever country they are in. But they seem to neglect zoos, private high-fence areas, and exotic hunting spots. Yes, now we're getting somewhere. It has been proven many times, in fact shown, that tigers and some leopards will actively jump over their barriers, or they go over the barriers, and rehabilitation centers as well. In, I think, 2015 or 2016, a tiger jumped the tiger-proof enclosure and mauled a couple guys and killed one of them. Another case, I believe it was in Mexico, a leopard jumped over an electric fence and killed somebody. Yeah. Also, you have to take into account a lot of high-fence areas use electric fencing, so if the grid goes down, then their power goes out. Many animals will test the fencing and escape. Animals such as lions, tigers, bears, hyenas, elephants, camels, all of them. Cape buffalo too. So you might be thinking you're having a good time, you're going through the woods in this apocalyptic scenario with a rifle, and then all of a sudden, oh shit, tiger, line up, shot, take, fire as many as you can, only to know that your rifle or your pistol or your shotgun is not enough to get the job done. Which is a huge problem. So you have to think about that. Seriously, think about it. And that's a thing not many preppers think about. There's also the urgencies of these animals being everywhere, and I think that stems from pop culture, as not many apocalyptic films bring up the facts or the possibility of wild animals being brought out. The only apocalyptic movie I've seen was I Am Legend, and it had lions in New York City. That was pretty realistic in my opinion. Damn. But besides that, there's a lot to think of, and it's pretty crazy on what would happen. There's also the possibilities of medicine. Let's get on to the medicine portion. Now, most major medicines such as insulin, penicillin, morphine, you can't really produce that at home unless you read and look up and have physical copies of instructions on how to produce it, how to gather it, how to maintain it. You would have to seriously do some research, and at that, it may be too much research for just one person to do and produce. So you really have to think about it, and the equipment required to make even basic crappy penicillin is something to behold. I know they produced it back in the 1800s, but because how people are nowadays, it may be extremely difficult, and especially in a post-apocalyptic society. All the shelves and storages may be picked up, but most medicines, most antibiotics or headache removal medicines, you can probably produce it by yourself or get something to supplement it, such as willow bark or aspirin tree bark, whatever contains the aspirin or apricantane, whatever the hell it is, chemical in it, you can probably chew on. There's also plenty of medicinal plants, but not many people look up their medicinal plants. Let's be honest. As well, not many people take the time to learn about it, so they may make mistakes. And if you do have someone who's highly intelligent about it, there comes the problem of can that person be trusted because they might poison you, yada yada yada. Or if you look it up yourself and you do extremely well, that may be a huge thing. Also, this is just my personal thing, but most medicines or most medicinal herbs and plants are an annual crop. You have to go gather them at a specific time of the year, and unfortunately, if you don't have them at that time of year, or if you're in an area that doesn't have them in general, and you're unable to collect them, or if you haven't stored them, then you could be putting yourself in extreme danger. And most medicines have a very short shelf life unless they're properly stored, which is a very big thing. Another thing which I would like to put in here, part of the top hard truths, is... shit, I just forgot it. Oh, yeah. I forgot about it while I was talking about the medicine. How nice. Oh, prepper growing. Yeah, your gardens. Most people who watch these videos aren't preppers, or watch prepping videos are not preppers, and because of that, they're probably going to be learning this stuff, and they can probably recognize your prepper garden, or your herb garden, medicinal garden pretty well, so when shit hits the fan, so to say, and they see your garden, they know, hey, that person's a prepper, I can get shit from them. Which can be very, very damaging. And because of that, you could have some pretty bad things happen to you. Especially in the later run, or you have your garden and someone sees it in the middle of the night without you knowing, they would probably steal it. Steal all of it. Another thing, they could hold you at gunpoint, kill you, your family, or threaten you, take all your shit and run. That's a huge possibility. Even if you have arms, you have to think. And with that being said, this is my top hard truths that preppers don't seem to understand. Most of them do understand it, but some, for some reason, like to get into arguments about it, saying that won't happen. Alright.